Are you tired of feeling alone in the music classroom? In this episode, learn how to connect with fellow educators, inspire your students, and transform your classroom together.
Welcome to Pass the Baton, Empowering Students in Music Education. Here, we amplify the voices of music teachers around the world who are passing the baton and creating environments where the music students are empowered. Together, we can help students transform from passive consumers to vibrant creatives. Welcome back to the Pass the Baton podcast. I'm Kathryn Finch.
And I'm Theresa Hoover. We're so glad that you've joined us again today. So Kathryn and I decided, since this was going to be our last episode before the new year, before 2025 officially begins, that we would do something a little different. We would kind of have just a conversation between the two of us about a topic that we've been really passionate about. And that's the idea of professional collaboration.
Yeah, I think it's just a great time of the year to kind of, right? We're mid-year. So it's a great time to kind of reflect on how things have gone. And if you're feeling like, gosh, I wish I could talk to other people, or I don't, I wish I had others to talk to. I don't have to do it alone. And I should kind of reach out to other people. And there is some really, I don't know if it's magic is the right word, but there's some really great things that happen when you collaborate with other people.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you shouldn't try to do this alone. So I guess, for us, Kathryn, our collaboration started, I think, 7 years ago, right? And those of you who have been following Pass the Baton for a while, you know, Kathryn and I met on Twitter.
Yep.
I mean, it's funny to say that now in 2024, but that was it. It was they called it an iMOOC, the Innovator's Mindset Massive Open Online Course, right? It was basically a big book study surrounding the book, The Innovator's Mindset, which if you haven't read it, highly recommend, by George Couros.
Yep.
So yeah, George was doing this book study on Twitter. There were Twitter chats. There were blogging challenges. What else did we do for that?
And you read the book, obviously, but yeah. And it was a lot of people. It was a lot of people, a lot of educators. Sure. So I don't remember if you reached out to me or I found you, but it was like, oh my gosh, another music teacher.
Right.
Just, we what were the chances we bumped into each other? But, that was really nice, because then we could kind of start to, well, what does this mean for music? When we were.
Right. And that was the most valuable part of that conversation, because the book was great and it was written for educators of all, varieties, but sure. Having those conversations with you, we were able to think about, what did this look like for music? And at the time, I was teaching elementary band and orchestra, and you were teaching elementary general music. Mm-hmm. So we weren't even doing the same exact thing, but we could still have the conversations.
For sure. Yep. And we were both blogging and thinking about the same topics from the book. So it just was a great way to, read your blogs and listen to what you were thinking and see how that fits with me and how I was thinking. And
right. And then before long, we were just texting and then talking on the phone. And then we introduced the Voxer app. And it just all kind of kept going. And I remember one of the things that I took from that book study, and then I think from a lot of the different things we've done online with these interactions, was this idea that you can work with other teachers and do projects with other teachers, even if they're not in your building. And I remember us having that conversation. Actually, I remember I was in the car, I was driving somewhere, and you and I were brainstorming, what could we do? How could we connect our classrooms? And I remember we came up with the idea that we would do something related to recorders, because what was it? Your third graders?
Mm-hmm.
They're getting ready to learn recorder. And my band students had played recorder previously, but then they also, were learning, band techniques. And so I talked to my band students about how, what did you learn? What have you learned about in band that could apply to recorder? And they're like, oh, breathing and posture. And they came up with all these cute little ideas, and they made a set of videos to kind of teach some little concepts to your students.
Mm-hmm. And then, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I remember we used Flipgrid, right? Because that was the easiest way to do it. And my students created their little videos, and they were super excited.
Yeah. And mine were also so thrilled to learn the recorder and have these pen pals from Virginia, all the way over, from Virginia, where I'm in Illinois. Right. And so that was kind of fun, but also then we got to play things too.
Right.
and we left messages and played, and it was kind of nice because kids can go off into their, we learned, we had some repertoire, pick one of them, go record yourself, and and send it off. So, and then some of your kids would listen and then send back a message. That kids love that. There was a purpose of recording, oh, I got to make it good, so I've got to practice a little bit before I hit record,
right.
they really loved it. And it was kind of nice to do a virtual pen pal kind of thing.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was just a neat way to for us to kind of experiment with, like, what is this going to look like connecting our classrooms together, right? Because I had never done anything like that, and it was a neat way to think about. I remember we had the conversation, like, what are you learning? What are your students working on? What are my students working on? And where were those connection points? So
yeah.
And it just kind of evolved from there, right? We ended up doing several different collaborations over the years.
Yeah. And I think that's something that maybe people think it has to be this big home run project the first time you do something with somebody else. And it probably isn't going to be. You're going to probably be like, oh, okay, it wasn't so scary to connect my classroom to yours. Put in some safety things, like it was a closed Flipgrid, because I was worried about my young students, as you were. And like we worked through the I'm trying something new and I don't know, and I don't want to mess this up, right? But we worked through those things, and then once you kind of do more of them, you kind of realize like what is, I guess you just work through things and get better at it, right? So
yeah. Remember another thing that I did when I was at that school, I think this was the 5th grade. It was a 5th grade orchestra. We were playing, and I can't remember the name of the piece, but it was a very common beginning orchestra piece that we were working on. And I put in the orchestra teacher's Facebook group, I asked if anybody else was working on that same piece. And somebody said, oh yeah, I'm doing it with my beginners. And what we ended up doing was exchanging recordings. So like every other week we would record where we were.
Oh.
And then we would send it to them, and they would watch it, and they would give us some feedback, and then they would do the same thing. And it was really neat to have those conversations, because the students were very perceptive. Like they really noticed a lot, and then they would see things. They'd be like, I can't remember what it was, but I remember they noticed a student had like a different colored instrument, like a purple violin or something. And they're like, should we say something? Should we say it's distracting? But that might hurt their feelings. So maybe we shouldn't say that. But they really thought through what they would say that would be good feedback, not hurt anybody's feelings, but still be helpful. And it was a neat way for them to kind of go back and forth. And with that example, myself and the other teacher, we really had control of the experience, right? So it wasn't like the students were speaking directly to other students. We controlled it, but yet they still had this, oh, we're going to be recording, and these other kids are going to see it. And oh boy, it's still that feeling to it. So it was a lot of fun.
Well, and it also makes you think, like I coordinate or collaborated with the music teacher down the street. So like, I know, we think you have Virginia and Illinois, it could literally be in the same district down the street.
Right.
But the other person was doing the same lesson I was doing. And I was like, hey, like, let's record ourselves and share among the buildings so that we can have kids practice writing constructive feedback, right? So as a group, we knew some things because we had done the same lesson, but then we could watch somebody else's performance, learn like, ooh, they did that. Ooh, that was a creative choice they made, and also, ooh, what happened there? And how do we make a constructive comment that people are going to be willing to listen to? And we had to work through like, well, I don't want to be mean. And, and it's like, and I just want to say we like it, and just working through like, okay, but does that help people when you say you like it? Let's at least tell them why we like it. And we can I wonder why this happened. Could you share more about why this happened? Right. It doesn't have to be like, we didn't like that. So it was just, you can collaborate in so many different ways. And one being literally down the street, because it's hard to connect in person sometimes.
Yep. So. Absolutely. And, I'm thinking as we're talking here, we're talking about a lot of examples where we're collaborating with another teacher and connecting the classrooms, but that doesn't even have to be the case. Like the students could have nothing to do with it. I also can think of a number of different times where I've just been like, hey, Kathryn, I have this idea. Can you just listen to it? And I give you like, this is my plan. This is what I've come up with so far for this project. What do you think? And just to have you say, well, did you think about this? And I go, oh, no, I did not. Just to have somebody else say, like, these all sound good, but what about this element? Or what if you added something to it? Like, I remember even when I was trying to start the Genius Hour project, you were such a good, it was just such a good back and forth to say, because you had done something similar, and just to be able to talk through your experience and then give me some suggestions on how to make ours even stronger. That in itself was super helpful, just to have somebody to bounce those ideas off of, because I haven't done it before. And I know myself well. I tend to just try to jump in and do all the things at once. And you're good at like saying, okay, Theresa, take a step back. Let's think about this.
Don't jump yet. Don't jump.
Right. I mean, a little bit of jumping is not bad, but yeah,
for sure.
You kind of rein me in to like think about like, okay, here's what needs to happen. And that in itself is also really valuable. So like our students weren't involved, but just helping each other with planning and thinking through these things.
Yeah. And I can say the opposite too, of like, I have sent you a Voxer and like, okay, we started it today and it went like this and I just don't know. And what do you think? And sometimes you were like, just jump and do it. Just try it. Just, and, or try this, like, so part of it is like communicating to somebody else, like your worries or whatever, and they can help you think through those things. But also some of it is just, the taking the leap too. But yeah, and getting advice from you after I've started too, right? Like it doesn't have to be like, okay, I'm going to start this new thing and then I jumped and then now I'm on my own jumping, like you can still collaborate and be like, okay, here's how it went today. What do you think for tomorrow? Or, or next week or, but yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when we think about this is one of the big challenges with music teachers, right? We're having these conversations simply because we're often the only ones who do what we do in our building, or we're one of a very small number. So thinking about that, it's important that we work together. It's not like we have a team of 5 fifth grade teachers that we're on, right?
Right.
We need to have some other people. In fact, just through various research studies I've read this year, they talk about how isolation is a big problem for music teachers, because you might be the only person in your building. You might be the only person in your district who teaches music, who does, this job that we do. So we need to think about like how that isolation can affect us. They've said that isolation leads to burnout. It leads to job dissatisfaction. It leads to people leaving the profession. And we don't want that, right? We need good music teachers. So thinking about how we can have these professional collaborations and have somebody that we can work with, talk to, all of that is going to be really valuable for what we do as music educators, and for us to be able to keep doing what we do as music teachers.
I think it also helps us remember too that, unlike years ago, we were taught like the teacher knows everything. And now we're starting to say like, you don't know everything, you just don't. You're human, and it's okay to not know everything. And you can reach out to people and they can help you to, get what your kids need. So like, it's just a reminder that we really, it's really helpful to not be the only person. Like reach out to people. You don't have to know it all. Right.
Yeah. That's very, very true. And I think that's something that we can teach our kids too, that the same idea, we've got people from all over the world that we can collaborate with and we can learn from and talk to. We don't have to know everything, but we just have to have a willingness to learn and ask and, put ourselves out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I guess,
go ahead.
Yeah. Part of it is then how do you put yourself out there? Right.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's, many of us go to conferences and things like that where we can we see people year after year and make connections with people, and that could be a good place to start with somebody like, hey, I know that person is my job, like maybe I should ask her to go to coffee with me and kind of talk about a session we saw, or
Yeah, absolutely. Conferences are such a great place to talk to people and to chat and just have those quick little conversations, whether you're in the hallway or, at the end of a session, things like that. I think that's totally worthwhile. If the idea of just talking to strangers in person is not appealing to you, I mean, there's always social media, right? There's many different places you can go on social media these days, whether it's going to be, something like Instagram, X, Blue Sky, and Threads are becoming really popular now. And I'm seeing a lot of music educators having conversations there. Facebook groups, you can find some, especially if you find the really like niche ones, whether it's elementary general music teachers of Illinois or things like that. You can have some really great conversations and connections that way. Again, when we were doing this in 2017, Twitter was the place to be. And we have several Twitter friends from then that I still talk to. Yeah. And, we've interviewed them on the podcast, and it's so exciting when we can meet up with them in person at conferences.
Yeah.
So that can be really worthwhile.
And also, Theresa, like, I think we were worried when we first met on online, like just how safe that is, right? I don't know you, you don't know me, but we were able to do a lot of things in our own comfort. I mean, and we joke, but I found out you were real in the flesh a couple weeks before we turned in Pass the Baton's manuscript, right? But we wrote a book before we saw each other in person. And we took our time of sharing addresses and personal information.
Absolutely.
But we got a lot done in a safe, comfortable way online.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And I think we've come to a point now, 2024 going into 2025, that there are very safe ways to do that. And again, for me, it's always like, I love meeting someone online, but then getting the opportunity to meet them in person. And it's usually at a conference, right? It's almost always, Midwest is coming up. I can't wait to see some of my new internet friends. And because I know that they're people that we're going to be able to have great conversations, and just, and you never know what might come from it. Okay. So if both of those things are not working for you, or you just need more ideas, right? You don't want to talk to strangers at a conference. You don't want to talk to strangers online. Then look around your district, right? Who is in your school district? Who is in your county? Who is someone nearby that you could have that conversation with, that you could talk to, and you could just, bounce ideas off of each other. So try to keep your eyes open for who else is out there that might be looking to have just someone to get coffee with, or, exchange text messages, Voxer, or anything like that. And, the other thing is, they don't have to be a music teacher.
Nope.
Right. That's something to keep in mind.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when Genius Hour was a new thing for me. I reached out to a second grade teacher and was like, and she was interested in it. So I worked with a second grade teacher in Genius Hour, and I learned so much for my music instruction, as well as she learned so much for her second grade classroom. But we weren't talking the same academic, but we still learned a lot together. So
yeah. And for me, I remember it was often my the technology coordinators in my building, because some of the things that I was doing, involved technology, and that's those teachers, they definitely want to chat. That's like one of the things that they love doing, is helping other educators think about how to integrate technology. And so we had so many conversations with just about teaching. And again, it didn't matter that the tech coach was not a music teacher. We still spoke education, and that was what was really important there. So there are people. In fact, now that we're having this conversation, I'm also remembering our guest from earlier this season, Emily Meyerson. She talked about how a lot of her work was inspired by her art teacher, the art teacher in her building, and how the two of them really collaborated, because Emily talked about the teaching for artistic behaviors, right?
Yep.
And that was a big thing for her. Of course, I'm drawing a blank on the episode number, but we'll make sure that we put it into the show notes, because just another example of that kind of collaboration. So those are some things you can think about as far as who to talk to. Just even if it's just a conversation about things you're thinking about trying in the classroom, things to make your classroom a little more student centered, focus on empowerment, any of those things. The other thing is, we've had several guests, right, on the podcast that have similar buddies, right? Similar people that they work with. I think back to episode 33 with Amy and Lauren. They talked a lot about independent musicianship, and how what Amy did at the middle school level kind of went through to what Lauren was doing with her high school kids, and how they really worked together to make all of that happen.
Yeah. So somebody within district, but in a different building. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember Tom and Justin from episode 56. They talked about student-centered learning. I don't think I know they're in different areas of Chicagoland, but they came together and they presented actually at IMEC, Illinois Music Education Conference, that I got to attend to. But, just kind of, we're both passionate about the topic and then decided to share together and kind of reach other people. So even if it's just you want to delve into something more or share your passion about something, that really, we know that really, pushes you forward in your thinking.
Yeah. And that's similar to Katie and Tracy from episode 41. They talked a lot about like helping students learn to practice. They were in the same county, but one taught band and one taught orchestra, right?
Yeah.
But they knew that they had this common interest and were able to work together and really develop some awesome resources for their students, and that they've, since shared with other educators. So it doesn't have to be something huge. It doesn't have to be something complicated, but just find that other person that you can have a conversation with and see where it goes. It could be really exciting.
Well, and if I had known that starting an iMOOC and being on Twitter and meeting you was going to lead to a book, I would have said you're crazy.
I know.
That was never the, the end goal.
I even remember when I started at that school district and they told me that I had to create a Twitter. I was like appalled. I have to have Twitter. And I remember just thinking that was the craziest thing I'd ever heard.
Yeah.
A lot's changed. So, what Kathryn and I have found, and I think many of our guests who have had somebody that they can work with, is it's going to definitely improve your teaching. It helps. I feel like for me, it just made things more fun. It made it more exciting. I felt that I was able to be more reflective about what I was doing because I was sharing it with somebody else, right?
Yeah.
Because we were having those conversations. But it's also really good modeling for the students.
Yeah.
It's
it just gives you permission to, like, I think it helps the kids see that you're learning too, and that you may not know what's going to happen. And like, I found that freeing, and the kids were very sweet with me. I have littles, but they were like, "It's okay, Mrs. Finch, we'll do it together," and it's just, but yeah,
yeah. And, we've talked about connection and collaboration and pass the baton in the book. That is one of the qualities of an empowered music student, is that they are able to connect outside the classroom, because we want students to see that music doesn't just happen in a bubble. It doesn't just happen within the four walls. It happens all over the place. And that we as musicians, we can connect with other musicians. And so if you think about it, it's important not only for us as educators, but it's important for our students to see that as well.
And to see that we are always learning ourselves, and kind of reminds us of what the learning process feels like for kids, right? To be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So now here's your task for anybody listening. If you want something to try tomorrow, I know maybe this isn't exactly tomorrow, something to try over the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Find somebody that you can talk to. Find another music teacher, find somebody else in your building, find somebody who teaches across the country and does something completely different, but has similar interests, right? Find somebody and kind of have a conversation. And, you can start small by just talking about something that new you want to try in your classroom, maybe after the new year. You could kind of share some struggles you've been having, look for ideas. Or if you're really feeling brave, think about something you can collaborate on. Think about something that you guys could do together, right?
Something that comes to mind is like something I do with the coworker in my district who has a job, is she'll just share a lesson, or I'll share a lesson. And it's more just like, hey, here's in case you need something for second grade, but what kind of happens is I will use it, or she will use it. And then she'll tell me like, "Oh, I did your lesson, but then I did this with it." And wait, I like that. Next time I'm going to do that, or vice versa. And so that's just another way of like, hey, here's a lesson I was going to do. Let's talk about it next time we have coffee or whatever, and just what'd you do with it? That kind of stuff can spark some really cool conversations too.
No, that's That's a good idea. I like that a
Yeah.
lot. If you're struggling to find people, there's always, we always have the coffee club. Once a month we do like a planning, we call it a planning party. It's really, we get together on Zoom and just talk about what's going on and share ideas and frustration sometimes, brainstorm all of that. So if you are looking for someone, that is always an option. And then there's, again, social media. And if it's one of those things that you're not sure where to go on social media, try just tagging Kathryn and I, and we're happy to connect you with some people that we know, and kind of make some almost music teacher matchmaking happen, right? We can kind of connect some people and say, hey, we know that you two both do this, and I think you would get along great. So feel free to like reach out to us, and we're happy to help facilitate some connections, because it's fun, and music is meant to be fun, and it's just going to help us all move forward.
Yeah. You don't have to feel alone. You can, get excited about something and share with somebody else what you're thinking about.
Yep, that's it. Okay. So there it is. There's your something to try tomorrow. Please do it. And then let us know how it goes, right? Yeah. Do something. Let us know how it goes. Shoot us an email, again, tag us on social media, any of that stuff. We'd love to hear stories, or if there's something that you've already done that you've tried in your classroom with another teacher friend or anything like that, let us know that too, because I think we can also, if we share these ideas, it might spark something for someone else, right? Something else that we could try. So please, do that. And we're excited to hear how it goes for you.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. If you have found value in our conversation, please hit that like button, subscribe to our podcast, and leave a review. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us grow our community of passionate music educators.